Welcome again to the Women's History Month Banquet 2016. Please feel free to continue eating your dinner and to eat your dessert, but we wanted to go ahead and get started with our wonderful program tonight. My name is Laura Kellams, and I am a volunteer here at this event. I'm trying to hold this thing up. Can y'all hear me? I'm trying to get it close. There we go. Okay. I might have to hold it, I think. And we're here tonight to celebrate women's history. It's a way of ending Women's History Month that we've been celebrating all month. And we're here tonight to honor the women in history who we know. Not the Susan B. Anthony kind of history, not even the Gertrude Stein kind of history, but the history that we're making right now here in our community. This is the history that our own peers are making, and the kind of history that women of our own community are making here every day in Northwest Arkansas. And I'm happy to say that these women who are inspiring to all of us all the time, they're inspiring others in our community all the time, they have plenty of impact left. Just because they've been making history doesn't mean that their history is over. So we're happy that they have a lot of impact left to give to our community. So we are going to get right down to it in honoring our honorees. And you'll see the list of them in your program, and we will take them in alphabetical order. So our first honoree, before I start, I wanted to also recognize Wanda Stevens, who is one of the recipients of the award in years past, and I think we may have missed her when we were introducing earlier. So. And our first honoree is Betty Ann Bradford. We're honoring Betty tonight for a life devoted to community service and for her role inspiring the rest of us to volunteer more of our own time. Betty is that rare person we run into anymore as our community grows and changes. She's a Fayetteville native. We don't run into that many of those anymore. And as she has devoted most of her life to making our community a better place, to live and to raise a family. Even in the years she lived all over the world during her husband Eddie's military career, Betty volunteered. She helped lead the military wives clubs and took on projects with her church and in her children's schools. When she returned to Fayetteville, she became active with the Bumpers College Alumni Society Board, with the Kappa Kappa Gamma Advisory Board, and with the Arkansas Alumni Association Scholarship Review Committee. She served on the Alumni Association's National Board, and she's still serving in different capacities at all three of those organizations, as well as the University Women's Giving Circle Grants Committee and her local PEO chapter. Betty was the Altruism of the Year in 2003 and again in 2012, and was honored last fall with the University of Arkansas's Andrew J. Lucas Alumni Service Award for her lifetime commitment to volunteer service. And as written in her nomination letter, she does all this with grace and style. And very importantly to all of us, she inspires others to do the same. For setting the example for all of us in how to devote our time to our communities, we honor Betty Ann Bradford this evening. Please join me in welcoming her to the podium.
And thank you, Laura. You made it much easier for me to do. It's never easy to talk about yourself, and yet I was instructed that we did need to say a few words for a few minutes in introducing ourselves. But Laura did such a nice job that I will just fill in some. But I must tell you that two of the nicest surprises of my life have happened to me in the last 6 months, both completely unexpected and hard to believe. And tonight's one of those nights. I've sat in the audience of the Women's Giving Circle, the Women of History committees, and listened as the women were honored and have marveled at the accomplishments that each of them have done as they received their awards, and I listened to their stories, never thinking that I might be one of them. It's a wonderful honor to be selected, and I thank the coalition for naming me a Washington County Woman of History. This honor has really overwhelmed me and has made me reassess my contributions to my community. All that I've done has been through volunteer work since returning to Fayetteville. In fact, most of my adult life has been volunteer service activities, with some paid work in related fields of my degree. I did teach school in Springdale the first year we were married, and then our military years began, and I continued to work until my children were born. As an Army wife, a career of my own did not seem to be a workable situation. We moved often. One time, 7 moves in 7 years, and in all, 21 moves in 27 years. So it was more just helping in ways that I could wherever we were. And our time away was enjoyable and certainly interesting. We lived in places that we wouldn't have if we had not been in the Army or traveling like we were. And we were in Germany 3.5 years, and we were there when the Berlin Wall was started and the Cold War was still a part of everybody's life. I've been asked why I like to volunteer, and I'm not sure that I've always thought of what I'm doing as volunteering. It's been more a labor of love. I have just started doing things in which I've been interested or joined an organization that is service-oriented, and that's what we do. Being part of a solution to a need and working with others to help make good things happen is truly a positive part of being a volunteer. Seldom are you working alone, and friendships made are a bonus while solving problems. With every move we've made, some of the activities have been the same: school, church, community, children's activities. But other places have had a one-of-a-kind opportunity. A good memory of one of them is while we were in the Washington, D.C. area. Representative John Paul Hammersmith's office called, excuse me, and asked if I would like to help address President and Mrs. Carter's Christmas cards. And I said yes, and enjoyed the experience. It was fun. And a side note of that is that times past at least, the two parties did get along, and you could receive a call from one party to help with the other, and that was fun. One interesting employed job that I had was also while we were in the Washington, D.C. area. It was teaching at Georgetown Visitation Preparatory School for Girls, the second oldest continually run all-girls school in the United States, and it was founded in Washington, D.C. in 1799. It adjoins Georgetown University, and the opportunity came to me by having taken a course at George Washington University, and Georgetown School for Girls, Georgetown Visitation, had a home economics department. And the teacher that was teaching there had to take an emergency leave of absence for a semester, which turned into a year. And they had called GW and asked if they had had any students in that particular coursework that might take a teaching assignment. I was hired, and it was an interesting and enjoyable year. And the regular teacher did come back the next year, but it was a memory that I cherish. Upon Eddie's retirement from the Army in 1982, we returned to Fayetteville, and both of us were fortunate enough to be asked to participate in activities and organizations that helped us be a part of the community. Living 34 years now in one place has had a lot of opportunities. Some projects have been real short-term, but many have been for a long time. We returned to membership in the church where we were married and have been involved there. And I became a member of Altrusa of Fayetteville and of AAUW, and have been a member of each of those for 34 years. Both opened my eyes to the needs in the community and the work they did, and I have participated in those activities and endeavors to help others. Helping with student scholarships has especially interested me, since I know that many good things are going to come from helping people with education. And so I have read and helped evaluate scholarship applications for several years in both Altrusa and the Alumni Association and Kappa Kappa Gamma. And another that was mentioned earlier in my introduction was the Women's Giving Circle. And that is an organization that has begun after 2000. But it's very interesting because it's a great opportunity to learn about the outstanding research and development projects and programs that are proposed by departments and individuals at the university. The membership gets to make the decision on how the money is dispersed for the projects we feel most needed, and after reading and hearing about them. In saying a sincere thank you to the Coalition Committee tonight, I also want to thank those of you in the audience who also do volunteer work, and I'm sure many of you do. It is a wonderful way to meet others and to help, and I feel that in doing so, we've met some of the challenges to help make Washington County a better and continuing better community. Thank you all very much.
Congratulations, Betty. And as she's the first recipient tonight, I'll show you all what all the honorees will receive. Spoiler alert for those who haven't gotten there yet. It says Betty Bradford, 2016 Outstanding Service to the Community, Washington County Women in History Coalition. And it has a beautiful clock, and it's very heavy, so be careful there.
I'll carry it carefully. Sure. And I need it.
Oh, good.
So thank you so much.
And aren't we all fortunate for all that Betty does for our community? Our next honoree is Dr. Lisa Corrigan. She has distinguished herself in a relatively short time, 9 years here in Fayetteville, through her activism on social justice issues and through her work to build networks of women who can do similar work statewide. Though relatively recent in history, this work in building a leadership network is what she's being honored for tonight. And I couldn't confirm this before, but I'm pretty sure we can confirm that Lisa is the youngest recipient of a Women in History Award. She's 37. Has anybody ever gotten one who's younger than that? Raise your hand or tell me if you know of anybody. I think we've confirmed it. We have our youngest recipient of history in history. Very good. And it's my former journalist in me. I have to confirm the facts before we say them. Lisa is an associate professor of communication at the University of Arkansas and is the director of the university's gender studies program. She's been instrumental in building the Students for Gender Equality group on campus and has donated her free time to help build successful coalitions throughout the state on reproductive justice, gender equity, and guns on campus, among other issues. She brings her academic expertise to bear on important social justice issues and works to raise our communities and our state's conscious level on the history and strategy of those issues. She regularly consults on legislation designed to improve the lives of women and girls in our state. She's also mentored many young women and helped them become involved in state and local policy issues. She routinely donates her time to train lobbyists, legislators, interns, caucuses, and political organizations about online activism, messaging, and strategy that help promote the interests of women and children in Arkansas and in other states as well. Lisa and her daughter Claudia, who is here tonight, often team up to do justice work together because Lisa believes that social transformation begins with family. Claudia attended the Rally for Reproductive Justice in Little Rock with her mother, and Lisa encouraged other women to bring their children so the kids could meet women doing work advocating for sexual education, reproductive justice, and equity. In just 3 years leading the gender studies program at the university, she's doubled the number of minors in the program because she already is making history and already helping so many young women follow in her footsteps. We honor Dr. Lisa Corrigan tonight.
What an honor to be recognized by the coalition. I'm in such august company. I was telling some of the other coalition members earlier that I actually was on this committee for several years as a representative of the AAW about 6 years ago, where I met many of the people who are in this room now. So it's so nice to be on this end of it, and it's very surprising, quite frankly. I wanted to talk about two of my recent projects as a way of talking about what I'm doing right now, since it's clear that I do have some time left on the clock to contribute to Washington County and the status of women and girls here. I'm lucky to be joined not just by my mother and partner and my daughter, but also my collaborator, Laura Wiederhoft, and we have just launched a podcast, which is a radio show on the internet called Lean Back. And season 1 is available online on iTunes and on Google Play. And it has several episodes, 12 episodes, where we talk about the relationship between women and work, and women and family, and women and relationships, and talk about issues of equity, including things like the wage gap and the second shift, and a lot of the issues that so many of you have championed here for so long. The second project that I'm working on is the result of doing some volunteer work for Peace at Home Women's Shelter, which I do with some regularity. And they had invited me to record a PSA for Domestic Violence Awareness Month in October. And so I did one on rape culture and got a lot of very interesting emails from the community as a result of that PSA that we recorded with KUAF. And one of the pieces of interesting mail that I received was from a guidance counselor from a rural middle school in Arkansas. And he was worried that they were having a sexual consent problem in their middle school. So I took one of my colleagues who I work with in the gender studies program at U of A, and we went out for a consultation with the principal of that middle school, the principal of the high school, all the guidance counselors, and all of the gifted and talented folks, and talked about sexual consent and what kind of programming might be appropriate to help young people build healthier relationships. And in Arkansas, even though we have the 3rd highest teen pregnancy rate, we don't have comprehensive sex education for a whole host of reasons that are really detrimental for girls and boys in our schools. So one of the things that I think we'll be doing is using some of the students that I've trained that are now community activists and some of the interns that I work with and some of the students in the Gender Studies program to start doing some data collection about the attitudes about sex and sexuality and healthy relationships for our young people, because we don't talk to them about it, and we don't ask them about it, and we don't have any data about what they're doing in Arkansas, except for when it comes time to talk about STD, STI rates, and teen pregnancy, which quite frankly is too late. So those are the two projects that I'm working on. I'm thrilled to be here with you all today. I won't take a lot of time because there's so many other brilliant women that we need to recognize, but I appreciate the honor tremendously. Thank you so much.
There you go. Great example of much to come through research and activism. Thank you very much, Lisa. Our next honoree is Mary Bess Mulhollan, and she's described by her friends as being unfailingly kind, intelligent, hardworking, devoted to her family and community, and also exceedingly modest. She has served as president of the committee the coalition that puts on this very event, and she's been active in several organizations working on educating the public about the environment over the years, including the League of Women Voters of Washington County. Her passion for nature's creatures has led her to her awareness of the fragility of the environment and to each individual's responsibility for ensuring environmental preservation. She's probably best known for her work in the early development of the Botanical Garden of the Ozarks and for her tireless volunteering there. She teaches children and adults and mentors and trains new volunteers. Whether with her own children, grandchildren, or the hundreds of preschoolers who take part in the Botanical Garden's Little Sprouts program, she demonstrates a loving concern and enthusiasm for the wonders and beauty of the natural world. For years, she prepared a recognition dinner each year for Botanical Garden volunteers until she moved to Butterfield Trail and didn't have enough kitchen space to prepare a meal for more than 60 people. So this will give you a little hint at how hard she works. Even then, she organized a troop of volunteers to take on that task. And doing what Mary Bess had been doing alone required a group of 6 volunteers. Mary Bess's career has been volunteerism, but she has studied all her life to learn more about the environment and work for its preservation. Her efforts to teach and encourage others have contributed to making our area greener and more filled with the calls of birds and the flutter of butterflies. For everything she's done for all of us and inspires us to do more, we honor Mary Bess Mulhollan tonight.
All of you. As she said, I'm just not comfortable up here. But I am comfortable with all your friends, so thank you very much for all these. When we got to the University of Arkansas and I was asked what I would be majoring in, I said home economics. Food preparation and food chemistry were my favorite classes. When I was young, I was always able to get out of helping in the kitchen because I had to play the piano or practice the piano. And so I didn't learn much about cooking growing up. I did realize that I had been preparing for a lifetime of cooking and being a host for many dinners at my home. My education path started before I realized it. In high school, my friends and I would go to each other's homes for a lunch on Saturday afternoon. But my mother helped at our grocery store on Saturday because that was the busiest day. And so I finally convinced her that I would prepare the dinner. I would serve everybody, and I and I even got it cleaned before she came home. So this was my first time of really having dinner on my own. 3 months after Paige and I were married, Paige received a notice from the Army, and we moved in to an Army base in El Paso, Texas. After the Army, we moved back to Fayetteville, where Paige was professor of history. I found many volunteer opportunities in the community and good friends doing the same things. The officers decided to create in 1961, I was asked to be president of the faculty wives group on campus. Paige was an assistant professor and got a lot of joking that his wife was president of the Women's Association, that he was the lowest paid person in the history department. The officers decided to create some new activity to attract attention and new members. We came up with the idea of interest groups. They would meet in small groups once a month and still attend the monthly meetings. When we first came to Fayetteville on the second time, we've moved here 4 times. Students, then Paige decided to go to the academic world. And then we came back as prophetic when he was asked to be on the history department. And then we ended up, here we are. Anyway, the interest groups, the complaint we always heard was there aren't any nice restaurants in this town. There's just no place to go eat. We didn't even have Dairy Queen, he said. Other groups organized, but the most popular one was the gourmet cooking group. That was a really popular time for us all. We even taught knitting as one of the interest groups. And I believe that one of the bridge groups is still playing together. After teaching 9 years at the university, Paige became an administrator at Kansas State University. Then the University of Oklahoma, then Arizona State University, and finally president at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. It was here that all my past experiences as hostess were very useful. Our home table was large enough to seat 22 people. It was used several times a week with guests from faculty, students, and Dayton residents. I always planned the menus for the dinners and made the dessert. After 11 years, we retired and eventually found ourselves back in Fayetteville. The Ozark Botanical Garden was just getting started. Paige and I helped plan the native plant garden, but they didn't have the money to hire a director. So Paige became the volunteer director for a year and a half. A couple years later, they built a butterfly house, and that became my sincere involvement with this project. Then I had a collection of bird feeders at our home. And when the butterfly house opened, we used to walk over to an area and could watch birds. When I moved to Butterfield, Susan asked me, she said, couldn't we use those butterfly houses, the bird houses over here at the Botanical Garden? So, of course, I said yes. It's been wonderful having the Botanical Garden. It's been a really great thing. And you should see the number of volunteers that we put to work over there. We needed a few more yesterday, or Sunday. We tried our first Easter egg hunt. She only ordered 400 eggs, and we had 310. It was a disaster. But the greatest thing is the new grocery store in town had given us hundreds of lollipops that, of course, were organic. And that did make people a little happier. So, anyway, we'll do better next year. We've moved often, and I've found a secret to fitting in quickly. You play permanent. And if you go like you're always going to live there forever, you find a place for volunteering, and you quickly are accepted by the group. I have found my home, and I love it as I always have. Thank all of you. Margaret always gets the prettiest clocks.
So if you are looking for a volunteer outlet, I think she can hook you up, especially if you've got a bunch of plastic Easter eggs left over after yesterday. Everybody in town needs to save them up and bring them by. Congratulations. Our next honoree is Jackee Smith, who has dedicated much of her life to helping people with developmental disabilities, which grew from her advocacy for her own daughter, but also from her own experience struggling in school with dyslexia, at the time unrecognized and undiagnosed. She grew up in Boston, but spent her adult life all over the country, raising a family, including the daughter that she moved here with. In spite of her own, Wendy, by the way, in spite of her own learning disability and her family responsibility, Jackee continued her own education, earning a master's degree in learning disabilities. At a time when public schools offered few, if any, services for children with mental disabilities, Jackee looked for services for her daughter and then for others who she knew weren't getting the help that they needed. She's been back here in Fayetteville. Well, she's been here. She moved here 23 years ago, having moved here to be closer to family. Jackee quickly got involved in several programs and organizations here locally, including Abilities Unlimited and Ozark Literacy Council. As she taught people to read who were learning English as a second language, and of course, she helped many children with dyslexia. With her own personal experience, she knew how to help them excel. She started a bowling league for young people with developmental disabilities and continues to attend bowling nights with them. She was instrumental in founding an advocacy group for parents and guardians of children with developmental delays called Arkansas Advocates for Equal Access. For working to stand up for those who needed you, including family, but also yourself, you're an inspiration to all of us. Please join me in honoring Jackee Smith.
It's a tremendous honor, hard to believe, still. I gotta get myself together here. I'll just tell you quickly, when I was first married, I was living in San Luis Obispo, California, and someone talked me into joining Toastmasters. And so I went, and they told me my first speech would be about something that I don't remember. I'd have a few weeks to prepare, and as part of the program, there is a timer, and the timer holds up a yellow card. Thank you. The timer holds up a yellow card when you have 1 or 2 minutes left, and then she holds up a red card when the time is up. Well, I never saw the yellow card. I never saw the red card. And I never lived it down. And I was telling a member, someone who's here tonight, about it, and she said, don't worry, She said, if you start going over, I'll go. And I'm afraid I won't see her. So if you can all do that, I'm bound to see somebody. Okay. I just want to tell you quickly as I can. When I was in first grade, and I was so eager to go to school, everything was wonderful until we were in our reading groups. And I really was in the top group. Kids, even 6-year-olds figured that out. And I was just amazed. All these other kids were reading, and I could not figure out how they were doing it. And of course, as a kid, you don't know how other people are seeing things. You just know how you see them. And so what I ended up believing was that, of course, I must be stupid. And I didn't like being stupid. And so the thing to do is cover it up as much as you can so other people won't know that you are stupid. So that was the story of my life. I got through high school, getting pretty good grades. I didn't pass the college boards, of course, but in those days they didn't give you your scores. They just sent them to the college where you applied and to your high school. And of course, they wouldn't give them to you either. But I did not get into Jackson College to study math as I had hoped. I loved math, didn't have to read. Took all that they had in my school.
Sorry, I'm speaking right past the mic, just back.
Oh, well, but I wanted to lean. Well, somebody remind me where I was.
College boards.
Yeah, okay. I didn't get in, so I went to one of the colleges at Boston University, and I studied art education. And they didn't ask if I'd taken the college boards, and I didn't bother to mention it. I got through this teaching school in Connecticut. And now let's fast forward to just about 3 years later. One of my good friends came in one Monday morning, and she said, I just read the best book last weekend. She said, do you like historical novels? And I said, oh yes, I love them. As I would, cover up. And she said, well, wonderful, I'm going to bring it to you tomorrow. And the pit of my stomach just went. And she brought it the next day. And as soon as school was over, I ran home and started trying to read it. And to my amazement, my eyes would follow a line of print. Now, I'm at the point where I know the, it, the, a, little, children, a few other words, but I'm having to sound out the ones that are multi-syllable. So anyway, it was a page turner. It was called The Silver Chalice by Thomas Costain. And I stuck with it as much as I could. And I don't know how long it took me to read it, but I got through it. And of course, but wait. I went back with the book the next day, and she said, how did I like it? And of course, I raved and raved. And she said, well, I just read another wonderful one. But it was Crannery Road. Do you remember it? Little book, maybe half an inch thick. Got through it. It was wonderful. Okay, now let's fast forward a little more, and I haven't seen them yet, but I'm watching. I'm trying. We are in at the Space Center, and it was a couple of years before the first moon landing, and it was a very intense time down there. Gazillions of people all over the place, no facilities to speak of. You had to go an hour drive to Houston if you needed something at a department store. And I got most of my children, 3 of them, in school right away. One was too young, and then I had to go see a special person for my special child. Well, I got there, and he said, how can I help you? And I told him. And when I got all through, he said, well, I'm sorry, but we don't have any classes for children like yours, or a child like yours. And I said, but didn't they just pass a law that requires it? He said, oh, well, that's only if there are 8 children. And I said, in a community this size, do you mean there aren't 8 children? And he said, Madam, this is an executive community. We don't have children like that. Yeah. So anyway, I had to go hunting, and I found this amazing school. I don't know how I found it to this day. I don't remember. But there were 4 well-to-do parents in the Post Oak section of Houston who each had a special child. And they had done their homework, and they found out about all these new things that were being discovered about education. And they had gathered up enough teachers, and in the church basement, they had a school for their children. And I don't know if we were there the second year or the third, but I know that at the end of the first year, they had 125 children in their school. I just learned, okay, the first year, it was an hour's drive in, an hour's drive home, 3 hours at home, an hour's drive in, an hour's drive home. Couldn't take that too long. Started hanging around. Couldn't take that too long, and just by luck, I was in a situation in a store named Sakowitz when the clerk that rang up your sale had a line which I was in, and she kept picking up the phone saying, I need help, send somebody down. So anyway, when I got there, I said, who are you talking to? I went down to see her. I said, I got time to kill. I need something to do, and that took care of the first year. Second year, I worked at the school as an aide, and I was learning all these wonderful things that they were doing. No class was called reading or arithmetic. Are you telling me something with that fan? But, you know, they taught all those basic skills in classes called visual perception, auditory perception, eye-hand coordination, visual this, auditory that. I don't remember all the names. But of course, I was real interested in all of these things and learning as much as I could. Well, on the second year that we were there, one other mother said, did you hear about Dr. Farrell? And I said, no. She said, well, he's been studying children like this, researching for over 25 years, and he was finding metabolic disorders. And she said, we took Carol, and she has too much copper in her body, and that was what had caused her problem. And if you have a child, need some help, you reach for straws all the time. And so we went to see Dr. Farrell. He decided she was a great candidate. And one of the requirements his requirements was that if he found metabolic disorders, that as parents you had to agree to take tests for those particular disorders because he was finding they were inherited. So we did it all. My little gal had 3, and it turned out I had 2, my husband had 1. And the doctor said, he saw us individually afterwards, after we'd had our tests, and he said that she had them to a greater degree, that's not the word he used, but to a greater penetrance than we had ours. And I was shocked. I mean, you know, I didn't know anything about metabolic disorders. And so I was thinking about it for a few minutes, and you know, all my life I'd hidden the fact that I couldn't read. I never told anybody. And I was just wondering, do I have the courage to tell them and expose myself? So I finally decided, yeah, I might as well. And I said, well, would that have had anything to do with the fact that I couldn't read? He said, oh, everything. He said, those 2 metabolic disorders, he says, keeps your brain going like this, which should explain a lot to those of you who know me. And he said that highly acidic blood going through your brain made it impossible when you were young for your brain to control the fine eye movements needed for reading. Whew. I was 41 years old. Now I know. Maybe I'm not so stupid. So anyway, I just kind of thought about that for a few minutes, and then I said to him, but how come when I was 24, my eyes would follow a line of print? And he said, when you go through puberty, metabolic disorders And this is what he did, tend to normalize. He says doesn't mean they're going to get perfect, but he says they tend that way. Well, I was learning all these things in the school that they were doing with these children to train their eyes and so forth. And I thought, you know, what did I do during those years of puberty, which last a long time? What did I do that would have replicated some of the things they were doing? So anyway, figured it all out. Later on, I got my master's, taught learning disabilities in a high school, used all the things I learned at that school to be successful there, and used the things I had learned to get that master's degree, the project you have to do. I did it with those kids in school. And I would tell you all about it, but I know there'll be people like this. Oh, I just had another thought that I just wanted to finish up with, which I'm sure you're all hoping I will. And I've lost it, but you know, this is what happens when you're 86. But thank you so much for all of this. It's wonderful, and I couldn't tell you, I've had a wonderful time in Fayetteville, Northwest Arkansas. This is really my new home. It's just been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Good.
What a wonderful example of how we can all advocate, not only for others, but for ourselves as well. Our final nominee tonight, only last because we're going in alphabetical order, is Billie Yates. For 40 years, Billie was a teacher and counselor at Prairie Grove schools during a time in which the district almost doubled in size. She was Prairie Grove's first and for a long time only guidance counselor. She worked in public schools altogether for 43 years. And she's well known in political circles in Northwest Arkansas, having volunteered for decades in calling, door knocking, and assisting in petition drives for public policy issues and for Democratic candidates. She's the longest serving member of the Junior League of Prairie Grove, having joined in 1964 when she first moved there. She's been a delegate to the silver-haired legislature 3 times. She also has represented retirees of Washington County as a vital member of AARP, especially in the organization's government affairs work. She's been a regional representative at the state level, speaking on behalf of 12,000 members of local clubs in Northwest Arkansas. But her many civic and service activities are eclipsed by her dedicated service to First United Methodist Church of Prairie Grove. She has filled in just about every area of service there, from the board to committees and Sunday school to baking for fundraisers. And speaking of baking, Billie's skills also have politicians from across the state readily accepting invitations to speak to groups like Senior Democrats of Northwest Arkansas, the Washington County Democratic Committee, and Washington County Democratic Women. That's because Billie bakes many of the guest speakers a delicious loaf of her homemade bread, a fact that has spread by word of mouth before they ever appear to speak in Washington County. And I actually was a recipient of one of those loaves of bread, and I can confirm again tonight that the bread was indeed delicious. And she actually has a loaf of it on her display over there if you want to check out the displays of several of our honorees over there. There's a loaf of bread. Maybe the first one who gets over there can snatch it.
We need to raffle it off.
Oh, that's a good idea. Raffle it off to raise money for tonight's event. For her industrious community service, inspiring all of us to do more ourselves, we honor Billie Yates this evening. Please join me in honoring her.
First, I'd like to thank the different groups that came together as a coalition and started this Women in History. I've attended some of the meetings before, the banquets, and I've always been amazed at what all these women have accomplished. So when I was called this time, excuse me, to tell me that I had been selected, I was surprised and very excited. So I'd like to say a word of thanks to all these people who have accomplished this. Excuse me. I was born in Durham, Arkansas, and at the home of my paternal grandparents. My mother and dad were living there because my dad was very ill, and he died a month before I was born. So my mother took me and went to live with her parents in Dutton, Arkansas. And so shortly after that, the next year, she started teaching at a country school. She had to walk 2 miles each way. Then, right after that, she started teaching at a country school, Red Star. She taught there 2 years, and then moved to Boston, and then to Accident. They always said that it was an accident if you found the school that was Accident. It was so far back in the country. But she did not drive, so we had to live in the community where she taught. And so one of my uncles would take us to that community on Monday morning and come pick us up on Friday evening. And one of my most vivid memories of living with those people is that we did not have sugar for our oatmeal because people couldn't afford to buy sugar then. And then another place we stayed, another community, those people had sulfur water. And I did not drink much water. But also, the schools, the one-room schools where she taught were consolidated. That was back when they had just passed a law about consolidating the little one-room schools. And so each one of them was closed after my mother taught there. So she had to, I went to school, started school in St. Paul, Arkansas, and I went there the rest of my schooling time, and she continued to teach there then, only she did take a year off because my grandparents became very ill and passed away during that year, so my mother took care of them before she started teaching at St. Paul. When I finished school, well, let me tell you first about my mother's situation. She had never gone to college as a regular student, so she had to do correspondence work in summer school. And so I was a sophomore in college when she got her degree. When I finished high school, I didn't think I could afford to go to college. So my mother, well, a man from Fayetteville Business College talked my mother into signing a contract for a year for me to go to that school and pay it out by the month. So I did, and after I'd gone 10 months, well, I got a job at the university as a secretary. And so I found out that I could take courses free, or a course free each time. So I started taking courses, and then I was able to get a part-time secretarial job and go ahead and take, and go to school full-time along with some help of scholarships. And the thing of it, so I finished that way with the help of scholarships. And then in August of 1960, I married my husband Howard, and we moved to Greenland. I was teaching there. I taught there for 3 years. and we lived in an apartment above the bus garage. And so I finished my master's degree while I was living there, and then also later I finished I got my professional counselor's license. I moved to Prairie Grove as a counselor and was there for 40 years. We lived in Prairie Grove until 1994 when we moved to Farmington. My husband died in the year 2000, and I continued to travel back and forth to Prairie Grove until 2003 when I retired. Excuse me. I still go over there to church. My husband and I have 3 sons, Jeffrey, John Richard, and Gregory. Jeffrey's family includes Dana and daughter Evelyn. John Richard's family includes Charlotte and daughter Anna and son Jack. And Gregory's family includes Candace and twins Zach and Sarah and daughter Chloe. Jeffrey and John Richard live in Little Rock, and Gregory lives in Roswell, Georgia. When John was in junior high, we took in one of his friends who was living with a single dad and was being neglected. 3 boys keep you busy, but you add 1 more and it takes it to a new level. He lived with us for 2 years and then went to live with his grandparents. I belong to several organizations: PEO, Delta Kappa Gamma, Prairie Grove Junior Civic League, Washington County Retired Teachers, West Washington County ARP, and Northwest Arkansas Senior Democrats. I served on the Juvenile Justice Advisory Board, and I'm especially proud to be a charter member of the Prairie Grove Junior Civic League of 50 years. And also I'm currently co-leader of AARP Hub 1. That's the area of 9 counties in Northwest Arkansas. Also, I received an honor award 2 years ago for my work in AARP. I've also been a member of the Silver-Haired Legislators several times. That group meets every 2 years to write bills and pretend to be real legislators. The bills are written to benefit the elderly, then they're sent to real legislators and hope that they become real bills. I'm currently serving on 2 committees: Growth for Farmington and Age-Friendly Fayetteville. That group is trying to find ways to improve Fayetteville for the senior citizens. Some of the projects these groups take on are Delta Kappa Gamma and Washington County Retired Teachers give scholarships to college students, while the Junior Civic League gives scholarship to high school seniors. Delta Kappa Gamma has an auction in December to raise money for the scholarships. I donate several loaves of bread. Some projects that the Junior Civic League and Washington County AARP have taken on are putting an aquarium in the nursing home, reading to the residents, donating supplies to kindergarten, the backpack program, the women's shelter. Also, when someone loses their house by fire or tornado, Junior Civic League is always there to give them a financial contribution. The state AARP program presents programs that are helpful to older people. And also, they are constantly working with the legislators to try to keep Medicare and Social Security and Meals on Wheels on safe ground. This year, the theme is caregiving. They want to train some people to train other people that can work in the home with elderly people. Elderly people usually prefer to stay at home if they can, instead of going to a nursing home. And so, but they need someone that's able to care for them. After my husband died, I got a bread starter from my sister-in-law, and I've made sourdough bread for 16 years. I've given away hundreds of loaves over the years. I take 3 loaves to my church every Sunday to be given to visitors. If there's no visitors, then they just give it to whoever gets there first. I also give bread to some of the speakers of some of the groups I'm in. And I can bake 15 loaves at a time. I usually don't bake that many, but I can. And my record is 36 loaves in 7 days. My grandchildren like my bread, so when I go to Little Rock, I take several loaves. When I meet one of their teachers, they ask, "Are you the grandma that bakes the bread?" Since bread making is a big part of my life, one of my friends suggested that I put one on display, so that explains the loaf of bread right there. Other than baking bread, I enjoy gardening. Working in the dirt may be a carryover from my childhood when my cousin and I made mud pies. And we usually added eggs to the mud pies to increase the quality. I also love to travel. I've been to Alaska, Europe, Hawaii, the Mediterranean, and the Caribbean. Again, I want to express my appreciation for this honor, and also I want to introduce my 2 sons who came from Little Rock. Jeff?
That's all right. Good job. I think your son also.
Thank you.
Sure. You'd leave tonight knowing how to keep mud pie together with eggs. Congratulations. All the women that we've seen tonight and honored tonight are wonderful inspirations to us. They're also different from age and the background to the type of work that they have done for us and with us in our community. But what they have in common is their dedication to make this place better, to make Arkansas a better place to live, and I think a better place to raise our girls. They join a truly distinguished group of honorees who are in the room tonight. So congratulations not just to them, but to all the women who are in the room tonight who have earned this distinguished honor. Please join me in an applause for all of them. And I'll welcome back to the podium Felicia, who has one more announcement.
Well, I don't know about you, but I was very inspired by all the stories tonight, and inspires me to even do more work on my own part, so I'm very excited about that. I would like to thank the Chancellor Hotel. They did a wonderful job. This is a great venue, so thanks to the Chancellor for allowing us to use this as our location. I'd also like to thank our planning committee. And they'll either stand up or raise their hands, whatever they're feeling shy or not. But we have Martha A.G. and Alison Simpkins from Altrusa. I was the AEW rep. Margaret Clark, Delta Kappa Gamma. Edwina Hancock and Becky Morehouse from BPW. Lene Seymour from the League of Women Voters, and Sarah Thompson from the Democratic Women. So thank you all very much. Truly is a group effort, and so I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to work with all of these women. I'd like to thank Lindsley Smith for, when she's get just here, but Lindsley's doing our videotaping of this tonight, so we will be able to see this on Community Access Television. So thank you, Lindsley, as well. And I'd also like to give a big shout out to one of my biggest supporters who always comes through in the pinch, and that's my husband, Kent Corrigan, because he helped with this, putting the program together. So I want to say thank you to him. He's not here, but he does a great job. On the tables, you'll see some postcards. If you'd like, if you were not here last year and didn't give us your email address, if you'd like to maybe fill out that card. We'll put you on our contact list on our Gmail account. We'll send you more information as we prepare for next year's banquet and that, so please consider doing that. And with that, thank you. Thanks again to everybody. Thank you all very much. Be careful driving home tonight and have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Are you taking my picture?
Oh, bless your heart. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And come to your river. Still the library? Yes. We're going to do a sneak preview. I can already do like